It's Juan for pedalsandeffects.com. I'm here with Robert Keeley at Guitcon here in Markneukirchen,
Yes,
Germany.
Markneukirchen.
I said it right. Fuck, can you believe that?
Markneukirchen.
Prague is 10 minutes this way. So
Yeah.
this is the Warwick factory that we're doing this at. And this is one of the great things that's happened at Guitcon for me and Nick is that Robert's here and we finally get to interview you because we do our interviews with builders all the time, but we like either go to their shops, which is in California or somewhere close to us, or they come to Pedals and Effects where we're at. But you know, you're in Oklahoma,
Right.
You know,
This is the center of the universe.
Yeah.
This is not the center of everyone else's universe.
And if I was coming on tour through there, but God, it's been a while since I've been to Oklahoma. I mean, Mars Volta always used to play in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but we, you know, like none of the acts I've been playing with the last few years have gone there. But
Yeah.
I love your city. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the theater that everybody plays? That
Will
Iggy-
Rogers?
No, the other
up north in Tulsa.
Yeah,
And
Tulsa.
it's going to come to me in a second.
It doesn't
It's
matter.
Gonna,
Well, it'll probably come to me as well.
Yep.
But I love that place, and that a lot you history there. What is it? Come on,
I know.
Fuck.
It's killing me. Everyone's going to be so mad at me.
So
you couldn't remember that?
we want to talk about pedals with you for a second, and so Nick and I love your gear.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and you make stuff in the vein that what we look for. I mean, I know also that you know, I think when the first time I heard about you was through that you were doing mods.
Right.
And that's not really how you got your start, right? You were but it did help pay the bills. Am I right?
Sure.
Okay.
It did pay the bills big time. So the first thing was the compressor.
Right.
And right after that came the mods. Mods to the Tube Screamer and Blues Driver. And then, you know, people like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani got hip to it. And it was pretty incredible. Then the number of big players at the time, the concept of mods was new. So it was really impressive the way that the mods took off. And they more than paid the bills because the effects pedals weren't that big, you know. The compressor always was. But
what year would you when you first started making, you know, like we'll say production started?
Yeah.
What year was that?
2002 is when I guess I started in 2001, and it was all one at a time myself.
Okay. Right.
And I was teaching at this little college and hired students right out of the front row seats. If they were paying attention and awake, they were hired. Like, you're going to build circuit boards for me. And like, I'll pay you a couple
There's
bucks.
a soldering gun.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it was
rad.
just that cool. And
Awesome.
literally all the first employees came right out of that school. And the mods just took off because it was brand new. And I didn't have the competition that could keep up with the production. I was hiring students. So it was really easy to get going fast.
Right.
And that contributed to the success. And that ran full steam for over a decade.
Right.
Just managed itself.
I mean, and you know, being a bass player, I mean, that's not something I would gravitate towards, you know, like, I mean, you know, at that time I was just buying tons of vintage gear, you know, you'd buy electroharmonic stuff or whatever and, you know, MXR, but like Digitech was probably the most interesting dudes at the, you know, for
Sure.
me at the time, because they were just making weird shit.
And Dodd.
Yeah.
DOD.
And yeah, DOD. And so, you know, and then, you know, somewhere like, I don't know when it happened, but like, you know, I was talking to George Tripp about it, and we were talking about, you know, when it came back again, and it came back probably like 6, 7, 8. I mean, I know Zvex was kind of around the late 90s.
sure.
He had his era, sort of full tone and all that. But then your part, I would say more for like maybe like the 2008, 9, 10, like when Earthquaker started doing it, and
Sure.
and then so what pedal then like kind of drove you guys into the boutique of that era? What would you say?
Yeah, it was really, we had a couple things that were like the Time Machine Boost, the Katana, and we had a little fuzz that I designed myself. It really wasn't much then. I was, the orders were super strong. I just didn't have a
Right.
lot of competition then. But like when you spoke of 2010,
Yeah.
you know, after that housing crash, the things that were really popular were all the new guys, like Jamie, Catlin Bread, JHS.
Right.
And I was kind of checked out, and I didn't see that they were wonderful companies growing up around me.
Right.
So by the time 2012 and 13 hit, I was literally slack-jawed. I'm trying to understand even who these people were. You know, who is Catlin Bread? Who is Earthquaker? You know, how are they making these sounds? Even
Right.
I was so used to resting on my laurels. So it was just I'd done a lot of stuff with Peter Frampton in the talk box and amp switchers.
right.
We built all those. And so there was lots of, I consider just like all legacy stuff. The old stuff that was done in the first 2 years, literally, made millions throughout the 2000s. But that all changed, and I had to figure out, wow, I got some great competition, and I need to reinvent myself in a hurry.
Right. And it's I just, because I've interviewed a few of these dudes, and then they all become my friends and stuff, and so we have conversations about it. But I think what happens too is that you start seeing all these guys, and then you start seeing who accelerates and who kind of like stays around the same level, and that might even be by a choice. Like Mr. Black's a really good friend of mine.
Oh yeah.
And he makes amazing stuff.
Yep.
But he kind of likes where he's at. There's guys I've even written to that I go, look, I can help you get bigger. And they're like, no, I'm cool where I'm at.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself? Do you want to be big like Earthquaker Devices or, JHS? Or are you comfortable being where you're at? Do you want to be a little bit? I mean, where do you see and think of that shit? You know what I mean?
I'm very growth motivated, I think.
Okay.
And so is my team. So even if I'm having a off week or month, or I'm thinking I'm pretty old, everybody around me is like a A-list engineer, player, and hyper competitive. So
Hyper competitive.
yeah, they are hyper competitive. I have to I say they have runner's legs because I have to stop them. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, we don't need a product out every 2 weeks.
No shit, because you know what's so
They're
funny?
so excited. They're still excited.
Jamie and I talked about it because Jamie goes, God damn, Keeley releases a pedal every month. How the fuck is he doing it? But also that's the thing, like when you get to be bigger, I don't know, maybe
they're about twice as big as me.
But yeah, maybe they could release one once a week. But I don't think that they can because of their model now, because they're so big now. They have these giant launches that really do well. Like the Data Corruptor went bam, and they really set it up right. So I don't know if that would be effective for them. But like you're at the place where you're like, yeah, you're hammering right now. Like I keep going, shit, what's this? What's he making now? And then I get it. I'm like, oh, Robert, please, I gotta have that. The bloomer. I was just like, what? And so it's your team that's got this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
So not only do we do everything in-house, we don't have to wait to contract somebody for anything. So whether it's the DSP programming on our digital stuff, or whether it's Creighton doing the board layout for something that requires a tweak, we need this function, we need this tap tempo, we need the customer to be able to adjust the order of the effects. You name it, that's all kind of done right there. And so we move very fast, and it's not dependent on me to get it done anymore. And I think that's what the big difference between old Keeley Electronics and new Keeley Electronics is in the past I would always be like, it's my job to do it, I'm the electrical engineer, I'm going to do it myself, and I would never get around to it. This way it's much easier for me to manage the whole project. Like I need you to work on the rotary for this while you're working on making sure these transistors sound good in our fuzz, so when we put together something like a Monterey or a Dark Side, the package that I'm envisioning, it then works, and so that's kind of, we're actually learning from JHS and Earthquaker. I learn from them all the time, and I love using them as an example because they do the product launches correctly, and that's something we're actually just focusing on this year. In the past, I was like, hey, I got an idea. It needs to be released today before someone else does it, and we just do it at our own pace, and customers and dealers get a little confused when they see so many things rapid fire. So we're learning to slow down a little bit.
Well, I think the one thing, if you don't mind me blowing smoke up your ass too, is that the one thing that I know from your stuff is it's bulletproof. And a lot of times, because I get so much gear from like the early startup dudes, because they know, I think the word is out that, what I'm really good for is that when you're just starting out, you get it to me, and if I dig it, like, the kit, I have a lot of credibility, I'll say.
Sure.
So, but another thing is I have a hard time pushing things that aren't, like I've gotten pedals that these dudes send me, they're so excited, they write all this stuff out and I get it doesn't work. I'm like, you didn't test this before you sent it out? I know something could happen in shipping, but it was bubble wrapped 1,000 times.
Yeah.
You probably missed something.
Yeah.
Or screws being missing or whatever, but every time I've gotten your stuff, I'm just like, this shit is bulletproof. It's gonna last on the road, which is important because The other thing is, I think there's a market of a lot of dudes who maybe not get out on tour, and so that's cool. They're practicing with their band and they're in their town and maybe doing local gig. But when you tour and you're flying all the time and grinding and stuff's getting spilled on it, whatever, like it has to be bulletproof.
Sure.
I mean, I won't use something if it's gonna go down on me.
Yeah.
And so your stuff, like I wanted to say, it's just I just know it's bulletproof. I'm never gonna think like if something's gone down, I'm never gonna think it's yours.
Right.
I'm gonna go, okay. What? I don't want to call anybody out.
It does take a lot of experience and learning because it doesn't always work that way. So, we've made mistakes in the past where we get a pedal sent to a magazine request and we're like, grab one off the shelf, out it goes, and they're like, hey, I got this thing and it doesn't work. And boy, you learn from those mistakes because they'll put it in the review and it'll stay there forever. So that stings long enough that you're like, you know what? A human is going to test every pedal, not only once, but twice. We're going to test it in production, making sure the sound works. Then it's going to get in the case, all buttoned up, just ready to put it in the box. And then Christina's going to test it again, fully, the entire range of the controls against our test unit. So it's like, at that point in time, all the knobs have been turned many times, and nothing should be falling.
Sounds very Japanesey.
Trust me, it's gotten to the point where it has to be like that. It has to be that kind of attention to detail, kind of like what you see here at Warwick. It's incredible that what they do. So you have to focus on it. Otherwise, that one customer that gets it bad is very vocal.
Yeah, vocal. I mean, that's the whole thing with the internet world and the chat rooms, the Reddits, forums, and stuff. And it's like, bad, stuff gets out there quickly. I mean, I was using a certain guy's gear and it was going down on me. So I gathered that every kid who bought one because I was pimping it and they saw it on my boards. Yeah. Theirs was going down, and sure enough, Nick, because Nick kind of stays more into that than I do as far as the forums and stuff, and he's like, that dude gets murdered on, and I was like, shit, and I still like the way the stuff sounds, but it can't go down. It just like if I'm at it, if I'm doing like a Deltron 3030 gig and my bass rate goes down, everybody's gonna look at you, especially because of the low end. You really feel it. It's just like eyes all on you. Mars Volta was always like that. If my rig went down, all eyes were on me because the low end's gone. Let alone where are we in the song kind of thing. You know what I mean? So talked about your company, and I want to say, so like, what got you interested in music or whatever,
Man,
pedals?
It's been really kind of the whole life thing, along with a lot of people that are in the music business. You catch a spark, and mine was just watching my dad play guitar, and then watching him play with vacuum tubes because he was into radios. So right out of high school, I took some electronic classes in high school, and it didn't really catch fire then, but playing guitar did. And so feeling that energy, that vibe from being on stage for the first couple times. I never did anything big, but it was actually here in Germany that I started playing guitar and learning all the stuff that was metal at the time, Right. Metal was at its peak back then, it was so cool.
Sure was.
And I had a blast doing that. But then when you graduate from high school and you got to get a job, then I started working at stereo stores where I was the repair guy. Okay. And then I saw how stuff failed, and I saw how Americans made high-end gear like, say, Macintosh or something like that. And I saw how Canadians like Paradigm Speakers would do factory tours. Wow. And then I saw how the Japanese built their stuff very efficiently, stayed together. And, then you move down the line and you see how quality changes. And wow. So I did that for actually 15 years before pedals. So the whole audio and video thing, and I worked for an engineer that modified video recorders for glamour shots. Remember when that was a thing and everyone used to get their picture taken at glamour shots? He designed that stuff. So there was circuit boards and modifications to gear, so that by the time pedals came up, I was like, oh wow, I can do this, that, and the other thing. So it kind of put the package together, and it also kept in mind that stuff fails because I worked in the service department for 15 years. So it's like everything breaks, Right. It's just a matter of when and if the customer's going to accidentally do it, or if you're going to design it such that it might fall apart. And we try not to do that, It's still a learning curve, and it's still a lot of the fun is to understand where it's going to stress, where it's going to break,
Well, I'll tell you, so I've had a lot of pedals in the early days that on my playing, but one that I know I've used the most I still have my Boss CS2 compressor that I've stepped on and off a billion times, and I've never had it worked on. And it's like a 1986, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When I started using it, and it's been on billions of boards, been all over the world, on so many different groups, and I'm always amazed. Like at Boss, they just killed it, and I think like I just. Whenever if anybody ever asks me for advice, just because I have a certain angle on stuff, I just go, just look at Boss and like,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, I really can honestly, I've never had a Boss pedal go down on me.
No.
And I own a ton of them, but it's crazy. Like great design, perfectly made, great sounds in it, like, and it's I'm sure a whole team of people doing it, but and so I'm always the guy who promotes that, like, and simplicity too, because their stuff,
Right.
their main stuff isn't difficult. It's
Right.
3 nods, 4 nods, you're good.
Yeah. It's great.
I don't know, I going back to, like what you build, like, I mean, even like with the compressor, your compressor that I love, it's so awesome. But for me, it's a little daunting for touring because I'm when you get thrown up on a festival, you don't have time to go through everything, and
No.
every knob or switch gets fucked with.
Yeah.
Even if you do it a second before you go on, when you walk on stage and look down, you're like, "What, did somebody drag cables over this?" And then
Yes.
all your stuff's different. And so I can't. I mean, I should probably have it off to the side, but I like having everything on the board, and so I can see it. I mean, it looks amazing as well. But your compressor is beautiful, sounds beautiful. And I know, you do make another compressor that's more simplistic, but I just gravitated towards that one.
Yeah, I mean, the compressor's been a fun thing. There's definitely different styles on it.
Right.
The old 2-knob and 4-knob compressors generally suited for guitars, and they have a certain sound and sustain, and they have a warmness to it, so they fatten up guitars. Then there's the newer line that's a completely different style, and those are more for limiting, and they work,
Right.
so therefore they work perfect for bass and stuff like that, where you're not looking for it to try to increase the sustain and have this
No.
chicken picking sound
No.
and this blooming that occurs
No,
on an old compressor.
It's totally about musicality and bringing, the elements that are happening in your hand to the forefront.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure, you want it to be simple to play.
Right.
You don't want to have to
Right.
focus so much on every little bit of your technique to have the sound come out nice and perfectly even how it is in your mind.
Right.
And a compressor can sometimes help with that.
Right.
If someone hasn't dragged cables over it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you get a setting, minus 20 dB is a lot different than minus 50 dB. So next thing you know, you're like, what happened?
Yeah, and then everybody's freaking out on you, and you're looking because I'm so tired of like problem solving in 30 seconds.
Sure.
While we're about to go on, or we're already on, and it's the first part of the song. You're just like, that's like the stress. Like that takes you more than playing. That will take everything out of me. It's just like, ugh, what now?
Right.
But anyway, so is it being a pedal guy? Has it always been easy? Like, what was the toughest thing about it? Like, what is being a company?
The toughest thing about it is, I think the toughest thing about it was when all the wheels kind of came off the bus, so to speak, and then realizing that I could put out a good design or something that was unique, and it didn't really matter in that climate of 2012, 13.
Right.
And then, so I released another pedal, and it didn't seem to matter. And then another pedal, and another pedal. And it's like, wow, it's going to take a lot of work and creativity, I guess, to get anybody's attention anymore. I had the couple diehard fans, but it really took a lot. I think that was the hardest part and imagine... not putting myself at this level at all, but there was a time when in the 70s and 80s when all auto manufacturers in the United States released stuff that wasn't very popular or good or whatever.
Sure.
So as a manufacturer going through that stage where you don't have a lot of ideas, or you might have ideas, but the public's just not looking at you, and it's kind of hard. And then you don't have the money to get the ideas out there in front of people. So continuously getting up to bat over and over again was one of the hardest things, and to try to keep everything,
Right.
fluid.
Right. How did you handle the stress? Like, how did you pull yourself through the tough times? You know what I mean?
I think at work, learning that everyone's kind of looking at you, and so you just have to put on the smile and go, what's really cool about this sound is, listen to this right here. I wonder how we can make that a little bit better.
Right.
Or what are you working on today? Oh, really? That's pretty cool. So we could do a double tracker thing. And wait a second, you're saying that you can make that dynamic so the harder I play, I can make a tremolo? I was like, oh, wow, this is great. So what we need to do is, and then you just got to get into your work.
It says your passion.
That's right. You have to make it a passion so that everyone else believes it around you.
Right.
And you have to lead in that way to make the sounds and the music fun. So now it's a lot easier. Now it's just, we're talking just like you and I are about how do we want it to sound? What do we want it to do here, there, elsewhere? What other features can we possibly pack into this thing?
Right.
And what about the project for next year?
Yeah.
And so it's a lot easier now because now we do have a little bit more, light shine on us, as far as the effects world is concerned again.
I mean, do you see like any company out there that you're like going, that would be an interesting take? Like, because I mean, obviously you're not like gonna go take what they're doing, exactly. You would say, I would wonder what my take is on that, because it's like you always see all of a sudden there's like they'll be like, oh, there's a bunch of companies that are all making bit crushers at the same time. Yeah. So then like next thing you know, you fucking bond with that shit, and then but everybody's is different, and I like this companies are whatever, okay, sampler pedals or stutter pedals or whatever. So is there anything out there that you see that you're like going, shit, I wonder what my take would be on that particular?
That's 100% what I do. What I do is I have to try to watch getting too excited about some of those ideas too, because Earthquaker comes out with the data corruptor, right? And everyone on my team is passionate about this business and we look at it and we go, wow, that is the perfect pedal for Earthquaker.
Right.
And, some of us are talking like, we could do that. And I'm like, yeah, I know we could, but that's not us.
Right.
I mean, we just, let's relax.
Right.
Let's think, how could we do something else that makes fun sounds, but it's not going to be that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it takes a little bit to relax and go, well, let's think about it. What if we did something that made scary movie sounds instead of synth sounds, like bass drops and things where there was oscillators going off. But this thing was more eerie and creepy sounding. Transformed your guitar into a Freddy Krueger, Friday the 13th, psycho type thing.
Right.
And so it just takes a little bit of thought and creativity. So you take all these wonderful ideas, like you said, Mr. Black, that guy's brilliant.
Yeah.
And he does everything himself.
Yeah.
He's like every role that I have at the company, he does himself.
Right.
And so you sometimes look at what he does and then you have to just kind of forget about it because it's easy to go, oh, I can do that too.
Right.
My guys can do that.
Right.
And so sometimes you just sit in the car and you drive around and you're like, what if I mixed this and this? Or what? How did I get that sound there?
Long.
How did those guys get that sound?
All night long.
And like, what if I controlled it with this?
Right.
And that's how you make new sounds.
I
You
mean,
gotta daydream.
I'm with it. It's how I, but if I combo this with this, like, I have insomnia, so that's how I deal with it. It's like, oh, fuck, what if I did this with this?
Yeah.
And then, when I finally get the chance, I'm like, shit, why isn't that working? And then you problem solve, make it happen. You're like, okay, that's what I was missing in my head. But, that's that, it is, like, I feel that the active mind is something it's at times is so hard to tame. I think that's why I have insomnia, is because my brain just, when it wakes up for a second, it just goes boom. What about all this shit that you didn't think about? You know what I mean? Like,
That's me at 1 o'clock in the morning this morning, right? It just as soon as you wake up, you're like, pray, don't think about anything. Oh no, it's really I've got a million thoughts flooding in.
Yes.
So
I mean, I was thinking, because Nick and I were doing a tone print for TC Electronics, and I was thinking about the tremolo one and how I would pattern it and what would I do. And I was like, I want super choppiness, it's super fast, but then have it blow up into, like where it's a different, it's not a square wave, it's sine wave, so it's more like a pillowy. So and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what. And then I'm like, oh fuck, I'm like, I got to get up in an hour.
Yeah.
Oh well, I might as well stay up, and then just stay up. But anyways, like
you started talking about that idea yesterday. You were like,
Yeah.
I want patterns in this tremolo.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing we do. We're like, but how can the user create patterns? Because we're not going to be able to guess them all for them.
Right.
So how can they input patterns? And Z-Vex has done, like you're talking about, he's done some great stuff with tremolo. So you kind of maybe look over the fence a little bit.
Oh, there's so many. I love Earthquaker's Hummingbird. I always loved the Boss PN2, the stereo pan tremolo. That one was pretty. I was always looking for hard choppiness because I always heard it as transforming like DJ turntable stuff. So as you can, because I also do that on my bass where I'll roll a pickup off, and the front pickup will be on, so you can,
Sure.
transfer it. I just wanted to do that, and then the tremolo is the same kind of effect. I want it to be, just so you get erratic patterns or whatever. And so they, it's really nice with their stuff. Is you can program it, but it's like everybody's got their thing that I like, and then there's also ones that I like that are simple. Like Earthquaker came out with the Eruptor, and it's like, one knob fuzz.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't have to think about it, so I'm never gonna think. I just have to know. Oh, okay. As long as it's 12 o'clock, it's the perfect fuzz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so everybody comes around. Like even Mr. Black, he made this envelope filter we did called the Font Beta, and that sucker is. It fucks speakers up though. Like they don't get that low end. I got to kind of tame that dude because sometimes I was like, whoa, that's too much low end. You know what I mean? And I'm not always playing my rig, so it's like if I'm on some shitty gear at a gig, I'm gonna toast that thing.
You're gonna test the speaker's limits.
Yeah, And
fire drill.
Did any of the pedal companies influence you? Like when you were coming up, did you look at Electro Harmonics or did you look at MXR or who else was around?
The first ones, of course, is MXR, because that's the cases that you can buy as a young pedal builder, right?
Oh, okay, right.
And so, not their cases, but
clones
of their cases.
Right.
That's the first thing you have to look at is MXR. And then you kind of hope and dream and wish that you could have a sexy-looking case, like an Ibanez. It's a great-looking case. It fits the function. You see Boss, it has the function, because of that silent switching. The way that they designed that plunger, you're never going to break the switch because you're never stressing it.
Right.
So there's so many things you're never going to break the circuit board because of the way the DC jack is in there.
Right.
So you look at those things and you kind of wonder, if you're ambitious like me and my team, you kind of wonder how we're going to come up with our own case that is acceptable, because it's also a fickle market, right? If I come up with something that looks like a Coke bottle, it may not be exactly what people want, right?
You fucking never know. It takes the one dude with a certain aesthetic. I think Nick has a really unique aesthetic, and sometimes he'll use shit that I go, man, fucking nobody's gonna use that because it's so ugly. And then the next thing you know, there's all these kids who follow Nick who are all of a sudden using that.
Yeah.
Or the way he paints his shit, then they all start painting it that way. Going over all these guys who fret over, how am I gonna paint this pedal? And then all of a sudden Nick goes and paints over it, and then all these kids start painting all over it. Especially the Line 6 one.
Yeah, that's great.
He's destroyed it, but it has to look cool too to me. I maybe I'm just a dumbass, and so I look at shit and I look at Boss, and the colors go with the like vibrato's this color, chorus is this color. The shit is just awesome, and I go, they set the mark for it, But there's other ones, like everybody loves the Russian fuzz, the Sovtek, because it fucking looks like a tank.
Yeah.
And it looks Russian. And you see it that shit is tight, So, the aesthetic thing is such I know it's like...
No, it's a huge part. We have, because we have the engineering kind of down, and it's easy for us now to develop sounds and new platforms. We're sitting there going, what's missing from Keeley? And it's that instant brand recognition from a distance. I can look at Instagram and float through there, and I'm like, I didn't see any of my pedals there, but I was tagged in them. Well, they're all black with some fine script logo on it, and I'm like, wow, I can't see any of my stuff, even when it's a big Compressor Pro. I still end up getting lost in the dark. So we've kind of thought, how are we going to create something that's, instantly recognizable from a distance, but, doesn't copy some of the stuff that we see that, again, Earthquaker and JHS do. They kind of wrote the book on that style of marketing and stuff.
I will give that to JHS. I think, I know that Boss Roland just did a collaboration with them, and I thought that when I realized that, I go, oh, it makes total sense, the aesthetic, because their aesthetic is so Japanese, very simplistic, but it really has a story when you look at it.
Yeah.
The one thing that I always cracked up about was the one that has the Neve sidecar painted on it, and the color box, I think it's called.
Yes.
And I have so many who's like, yeah, that one, it sounds like a Neve sidecar. I go, no, it doesn't. You're fucking high. And I've even talked to, what's his name?
Josh.
Mm-hmm. And Josh is like, yeah, I was just inspired by it. I think is what he told me. Mm-hmm. But it's like, anybody says, I go, you must not have ever plugged into a Neve sidecar because it doesn't sound like one.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. It's inspired by, so dudes get lit up by it. But I got that whole Japanese connection. It's like, yeah, that aesthetic driven, like it speaks to their their kind
Sure.
of
I mean,
culture.
all of us are artists, whether it's we're
Right.
painting with sounds or whatever, or we're trying to paint with tones and things
Right.
like that. And some of us can play some ambient sounding stuff. So it is about what it's looking and what kind of mood it's giving you.
Right.
And man, I think it gets more and more challenging as time goes on, for me at any rate, to try to put that visual artistic element in there where people are inspired to
Right.
play it from behind a glass counter or even on a page filled with 6 other delay pedals. How do I
Right.
make mine look cool? I can compete on price all day long, but how do I make it look cool and then make it fit in with the rest of my pedals? It's actually a huge topic for us as to how to
Well, cool.
get that
I mean,
done.
I love your stuff. I love the way it's made. I love the way your stuff sounds. And again, I'm a bass player. There's a whole nother guitar world. The kids will always ask me, if I opened up my phone, I'd probably see 5 or 6 questions of what's your favorite fuzz?
Yeah.
What is, something like that. The thing is like, what I think a lot of people don't understand is what you put in the front. Like, what fucking amp are you using?
Yeah.
Like, this distortion might be my favorite distortion into my Ampeg, but if you're using, I don't know, whatever else, like a GK, it's not going to sound as good, and I would use a different distortion of fuzz.
Sure.
So you have to tell me what you're using. What kind of pickups are you using? You active electronics? There's all this shit that goes into it. It's not just like, this just doesn't work like that. I mean, apparently the tube screamer for guitar players is something that almost is universal. But I plug in a fucking tube screamer, I go, come on, right? Whatever. There's so many other things that I'd rather plug in for bass. So, is there anything that you see like universal, like what delays? I guess delays are like that, digital delays, But like, do you have something that you feel is pretty universal? I guess your compressor would probably be something that you really
Man, I
think
wouldn't
would work in almost every situation.
No, I think I only have maybe one effect that is kind of universal like that. I got really lucky with my very first design, that Katana boost.
Yeah, right.
That Katana, I don't find anyone that says it sounds bad, so it doesn't sound bad. And I think most people are like, it just sounds fatter because it emulates a couple tubes.
Right.
And so it's just like a tube preamp. So in general, a little preamp can sound good. It can make things sound a little fatter. And so
right.
that out of my collection, it's that.
Right.
It's funny to talk about the tube screamer. I think the tube screamer is so well liked because it makes bad things just sound dull. So it's like.
What about the Klon?
Now the Klon is really cool. I wasn't a fanboy until I had to start to analyze it, and we came up with our Oxblood because of my understanding of it.
Right.
So I'm a fanboy of the engineering that went into it, and I don't want to get too complicated, but all these little feedback loops that tailor the bass here, clean up the bass under when the mid range might be louder and more distorting, but there's all these little fascinating things that go into making that sound, and it's rather complex.
Right.
It's not
I would have
trivial.
never guessed that. I just go, I bet it's some simple
No.
shit. And he's even said like, whatever he's
Well, he
putting
didn't
out
design
now.
it.
Yeah, he didn't design it.
No, I mean, he paid 2 engineers to do it. I think that's well documented. I hope the internet correct me if I'm
That's
wrong.
fucking.
No, I think he had 2 MIT engineers over 2 years develop that. Yeah, Bill Finnegan. Yeah,
And so he's building them again, and he just said, I think it comes with something that says like, I had nothing to do with this.
with all the hype in it. And
yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
But it's worthy of some hype.
I think so. Incredibly so.
All right.
I mean, everything from the tone control to the voltage tripling, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
All the feedback loops that tailor the sound as the drive goes up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because, a low gain setting, you have different bass and treble responses than if you have a high gain setting. And what's nice about that Klon, you might not like it, but what it does very well is it has a philosophy, and as it changes, as you change the gain control and stuff like that, the EQ and the way that the circuit work
Right.
change.
Right,
Really
I've heard
way.
that. I hear it. I mean, I actually do like them. The Two Screams, the one I think is like,
Yeah.
it's because Stevie Ray Vaughan played it, so
Yeah.
everybody just said, "Well,
Yeah.
fuck it, sounds great with me then,"
Yeah.
But so Stevie Ray kind of helped, like, brainwash him. But the Klon, I plugged into it for bass, and I've heard guitar players plug in it. I do think they're cool. I mean, Josh, our friend Josh Klinghoffer, has a couple of that are pristine, and I think we plugged into them, and I was like, wow, fuck. I mean, it's pretty awesome sounding.
The hard thing as a designer and engineer or trying to craft a pedal like that is once you get like that Klon in your ears and you're evaluating it, then it's hard to think anything else sounds
Yes.
good. You got to really step away. It's
Right.
like, wait,
Right.
there is another sound in the world besides a clon. I'm not going to fall for it that much, but
Right.
it is crazy because it can be very seductive to the ear. Your
Right.
ears can get very used to it in that
Right.
tone, and it's hard to listen to like a big muff and go, that sounds good, that's useful. Of course it is. It's just you have to give it its own, space or
Right,
environment to exist in.
Yeah.
That's a funny pedal.
I mean, now that I've my channel Pedals and Effects has been going for 5 years, and I've done interviews in it. I've done a lot of pedal reviews or whatever, and I'm still pretty amazed on how much this whole pedal thing is just still chugging along, because I really thought like, oh shit, Kemper's gonna take everything out, and or Fractal, and so I kind of always asked a lot of dudes. I asked Trips, I asked whatever, and I go, so like, what's your take on that? Because to me, it's like, do I ultimately think that it could overtake thing? Well, my concept is like, well, if you're gonna give me a pedal with a shit ton of fucking knobs on it, I might as well go to that. But I still know that when kids come into or other musicians, lots of other band dudes want to come and just check out gear, and they'll come through, hey Juan, can I come through and check out some stuff? And they gravitate to the simple shit. They always see a 1 knob, 2 knob, 3 knob, and they big knobs, like Jamie's been using the big knobs lately, and so they see that and they go, yeah, I want that simplicity. So like my question here is like, what is it? Like, what do you think? Do you think things gonna just sit there? Do you think it's granted, we all don't want that to happen, but
What's pretty cool about this whole market, sometimes we can joke about people playing the blues scales, but there is a certain reverence to the past,
Right.
and there's a retro thing to this industry, no matter how modern you want to try to make it.
Sure.
So I kind of maybe ignorantly or confidently move forward that I'm going to develop pedals, and sometimes they're going to be 1 knob, simple effects, boosters. And people love it. People get off on a certain transistor or sound or a way that it, scratches the speaker.
Sure.
And sometimes I'm going to do some fancy digital stuff to the best of my ability. But I always keep in mind that there's a huge respect, nostalgia for the past or whatever. And it's everything from the vacuum tubes to the fact that we still use wood on cabinets and wood on guitars and metals.
paper and speakers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I do get jealous of Kempers and things like that, but I'm not there yet, and so that's not my concern.
Here's a way I can present it then. I have a really good friend who's doing really well in producing albums and mixing albums. And for a while there, he was doing everything in the box, and he was showing me all these hits on the radio or whatever, or streaming that was just all made in the box and stuff. And then cut to like a couple years later, and he's buying synths and he's buying other types of gear, and I go, let me guess, it's because nobody's inspired to work with you when they're fucking dealing in the box. Because how inspiring is it to just be like, okay, now plug the bass into Pro Tools, and then now plug your synth into Pro Tools. But what if you not even a synth, it's a controller, because everything's in the box, right?
Right.
So then all of a sudden you put a Juno 60 in front of them, and they're like, fuck, and then the artist opens up and they get better results.
Yeah.
So guess what? You started buying gear now because people need to have an interaction. I want to turn a knob. I don't want to look at a fucking screen.
Yeah.
I want to be able to just go boom, and I don't know, my head space is different. I'm not someone who thinks that my mind is fluid, and when I look at a fractal, I have the same energy as when I'm on a pedal. It's a different energy.
Yeah.
And
totally
to me,
is.
this is like, fuck, I feel like I'm in fucking school looking calculus problem. And here I'm like, fuck, I feel like I just did a line of coke and I'm cranking up the fucking buzz, So I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I think, it will always be around. And I don't think that kids are totally inspired. Even when Nick and I went to Dweezil's, and he was getting his sounds up for some tour, and he uses bone.
He uses both.
But we showed him, I think, the Rainbow Machine, where we think you're going to love it. And he's just like, I hear it. He goes, but I could program that in the Fractal. And I'm thinking in my head, why the fuck would you want it, though?
Yeah.
It's there. It's worth $100 and whatever dollars to have it already done. Instead of spending me, how the fuck did it do? Okay, so what? And then 4 hours of your life, it's worth it to just.
I got a fun story. He ended up calling me on my birthday. I've been trying to get a hold of him forever, and he ended up just accidentally calling me on my birthday. It was really cool because I was thinking, wow, this is great. I'm going to tell him about all my new effects. He could care less about anything I had new because he had all his profiling systems or whatever you call it, right?
Profiling systems, right.
But he had this Java boost, which is a one transistor thing that we made, copy of a range master. He's like, I just can't do that with my simulations. But I don't like the fact that it's out of phase. And I was like, I'll fix it for you. But would you try some of my effects? He's like, yeah, you can send them to me. I don't think I'll do anything with them. But I can't simulate that germanium transistor.
Right.
I can't get that sound. And that's pretty cool.
Right.
So there's still a place in the world, even for the most simple, boosters.
And I know that there's digital distortion that might be useful for certain things, like maybe some futuristic sound, whatever. But I still don't think any of that stuff has metal distortion, right?
Yes.
But I don't think it has other types of distortions, and that's because it's just like with digital when it first came out. There wasn't. It's all chopped steps,
Sure.
And then still analog still had the wave, and so now it's gotten to the point where you can't hear the difference. It actually sounds better or whatever, but that distortion just doesn't have the inconsistencies mixed with the consistencies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree.
And so
it seems so hard there's just not enough calculations available yet in this DSP stuff to make it as strange as an analog circuit is, or a couple transistors, and so no, it's not quite as powerful yet, thank goodness, because it still is fun to design an analog dirt box and tweak the values to it and make it do something that the other pedal doesn't do.
And
so,
I think there's I'm always amazed when the way things go. I thought like, oh fuck, music's done. Every time like Mars Volta would tour, the EDM tents would have 1 billion people and the rock bands, and then the rock bands are on and it sounds like this, and then all of a sudden the EDMs would come on, or hip hop, and it would be the PA system would open up like this. I'm like, we're done. We're playing lutes. You know what I mean? But then finally, with the fucking festival, people figured out, I was like, let's not put these two together, because they were getting tired of like whoever was in the EDM tent was like, Dead Mouse, he's over there and he's got everybody. And then you have these legends fucking like Jesus and Mary Chain going and they're playing in front of 100 people. That sucks.
Right.
So then they finally, now you see in a lot of these festivals, they're just separated. No, you're not combining them anymore. Right. EDM's over here, rock's over. So you have like things like Riot Fest, and then it's like, you go there and it's like, yeah, it's all amps. You can't go up there with, I see the fractal stuff and the metal stuff, but an engineer friend of mine, she does live sound, and she told me that, she goes, well, the reason they use it because of the chops. It's got to be dead quiet, and it makes it more powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have like your boogies and like Metallica style old school, it's not chopping like that. Like those Kempers or fractals will just, when you, it's just, there's no feedback, there's no nothing. And so she said, so it makes sense.
It's pretty cool and powerful, it really is.
Right.
For that style.
And
awesome.
I think the last thing I'd say is like, so what do you see like is there anything that you're working on that you can kind of give us any kind of preview to? So
man, sure. The platform we're on with our digital effects can do a lot of stuff in stereo, but it's then hard to do stuff in stereo and tap tempo, and it's hard to do presets. So we're working on this new platform, and it allows us to do all those things and more. So we'll be able to put USB support to it, have displays so that people can read and write presets and save their own names if they want.
Right.
That kind of stuff that's been done even in the 80s. But I think we've got a good ear for sounds.
Sure,
and I think
definitely.
I think me and my team have got a good, healthy respect for what guitar players want to hear and what's acceptable to put out. So I'm hoping that we can add features to some of the good sounds that we're making right now, presets and stuff like that, or MIDI control so that it can fit in pro rigs. So I think we're on kind of a normal path for anybody that's been developing gear. You know what I mean?
Well, I will say, Jamie and I were talking about it. He was like, yeah. I go, I think he visited you.
He did,
and he was saying that he's doing these combo pedals, and I wonder how that goes. And it's like, to me, I thought about it. It's like, yeah, why don't you just buy one pedal, and then there's your combo. But if you're combining them in a way that's helping them get to the the beauty of it. Without them, because say you're putting, a chorus with a certain distortion and it just doesn't sound good, and you got to get another distortion, or was it the chorus? And then you're sitting there. But then if you just combine it for them and help them get to where they want to go. So is that what?
That's the beautiful thing about
that
those.
What you were doing with that?
Those combo boxes were, at first I was thinking about an accurate recreation of, say, Jimi Hendrix sound.
Sure.
And as soon as we missed one part of it, it was actually quite relieving. As soon as we couldn't get that Octavia sound in the digital world, right? There's some things you just can't do. That little bit of distortion that comes with that Octavia in a certain area of the neck. Okay, so once that was out of the window, that took all the handcuffs off and the restraints off. It was like, hey, wait a second. We're just going to make like a Jack White type octave up, octave down. It's going to be kind of sloppy. And it's not a Jimi Hendrix pedal. It's not an accurate recreation. This pedal has a Univibe in it or whatever, and it has a rotary speaker simulator in it, and it has these sounds that he didn't have a Univibe. He didn't have a rotary pedal on stage. He might have played one in the studio for Little Wing or whatever. So we abandoned that. But guess what? The philosophy behind those pedals is this combination of sounds is well recorded, well used, and appreciated by guitar players. And you might not like a fuzz face, or you might not like this pedal, because a fuzz face is not like not many people raise their hand today in 2017 and go, oh, I want a fuzz face.
Right.
That's the first thing I want.
Right.
So you have to put it in a kind of a perspective, know how to use those sounds to get certain classic sounds, and it can work for people. I'm always surprised how many people say that is simply one of their favorites. When I wouldn't pick a fuzz face, I don't think they would pick a fuzz face first, but they can get the sounds to work together and work in their rig with another overdrive. Same thing with our dark side pedal. It is not supposed to be anything that David Gilmour would pick up and use. It's a combination of sounds that he used so that if you're sitting there jamming, or you've got something where you've got a syncopated delay, or you need a fuzz, a big muff style type thing, then you can get these sounds to work, kind of like he did, because those sounds work good together. So I'm going to continue to look for artists, what I call artist pedals, that just put familiar sounds together. I have, for a bass rig, there are certain effects that do sound good on bass. I'm going to put a bass rig together, and I'm sure 50% of the people will be like, well, that's not exactly what I would use. And I'm like, I'm sure not. But these sounds do work together,
right?
And you can get some cool sounds out of them. What I mean? It's different than multi-effects unit in my mind, like a rack unit or something like that, or a Korg or a Zoom. Nothing against those folks, where they're making something in a really compact thing. Because we still got big old school transistors, and they might be even germanium ones. And our DSP has developed ourselves, not done with microphone analysis and stuff like that. We're actually going, that's not what it sounds like on the record. We got to keep on tweaking it until it has that awesome sound and that feeling. It's like, okay, that's not exact translation of the circuit into digital code, but now it sounds right. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And so that's the kind of fun we're having.
Yeah.
So those pedals actually work out really well. They're very popular with us because they are just sounds that work good together.
I think that it's complementary. So then you don't have to sit there and think twice. They really are working perfectly to give you musicality. You know what I mean?
That's all it's supposed to do.
Right.
It's not supposed to get you that specific artist sound. It's just for me, a way for me to put those sounds together. So
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks. We're here again at Guitcon in wonderful Markneukirchen, Germany, at Framus Warwick headquarters. Thank you.
Peace out.